They said I was lazy, that I just wanted attention, that I made excuses because I couldn't keep up. What they didn't know was that I recorded everything, every insult, every accusation, every word they said in that school meeting where they swore I was just playing victim. And when I posted it, the world saw who they really were. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just pressed play and watched their silence go viral. My name is Maya Jennings, and I've spent most of my life being told I wasn't trying hard enough, that if I just focused more, paid better attention, stopped being so dramatic, I'd be fine. Except I wasn't fine. Not in first grade, not in eighth, not in junior year. But whenever I tried to explain that something felt different, my parents looked at me like I was broken. Not because of what I struggled with, but because I dared to suggest I was struggling at all. Sweetheart, everyone gets overwhelmed sometimes, my mom Angela would say. You're just not pushing yourself, my dad Robert would add. And my brother Tyler, he didn't even pretend to care. You just want a pity party. They all had their roles. Mom, the high-powered HR manager who thought therapy was for people without real jobs. Dad, the ex-Marine turned contractor who thought any problem could be fixed with discipline. And Tyler, Mr. Perfect, star athlete, straight A student. Their pride and joy. Compared to him, I was just the kid who forgot homework and couldn't keep up. It wasn't that I didn't try. I tried so hard it hurt. I stayed up until 2 a.m., rewriting notes. I cried over math worksheets. I reread test questions 10 times and still misunderstood what they meant. And yet the feedback was always the same. Distracted, messy, unmotivated, doesn't apply herself. At school, I was invisible. At home, I was unbearable. By the time I was 16, I stopped asking for help, not because I didn't need it, but because no one believed me when I did. Things started to unravel for real during junior year. Algebra 2 was destroying me. I'd stare at equations and see nothing. It was like trying to read a foreign language, one that everyone else spoke fluently. And when I asked for help, teachers just told me to study harder. But one day, after a particularly rough class, Miss Koenig, my math teacher, stopped me before I could leave. Maya, can I talk to you? I froze. Sure. He closed the classroom door. You're not a slacker. I've seen your notes. I know you care. But something's not clicking. And I don't think it's about effort. I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, I think there's something else going on here. Have you ever been tested for a learning disability? The words hit me like a freight train. I didn't know what to say. I'd thought about it for years quietly, secretly. I'd read articles and watched videos about ADHD, auditory processing, and dyscalculia, but I'd never said it out loud, because in my family, that would make me weak, broken, attention-seeking. But here was a teacher, one of the good ones, telling me what I'd always suspected. I haven't been tested, I said softly. Would you be okay if I talked to your school counselor? He asked. I nodded. That tiny moment, that was the beginning of the truth finally pushing its way out. Miss Reynolds, my guidance counselor, scheduled a meeting with my parents the next week. She wanted to talk about a formal evaluation, to screen me for any learning differences, and determine if I qualified for accommodations. I was hopeful, stupidly, naively hopeful, until I got home and walked into World War III. You told your school you think you're disabled, my mother snapped, slamming a cabinet door so hard it rattled. I didn't say that, I mumbled. Mr. Koenig brought it up. And oh, so your math teacher's a psychologist now, my dad barked. What? You failed a quiz and now you want special treatment. I felt my cheeks burn. It's not about special treatment. It's about getting tested, just to see. You don't need a label, Mom snapped. You need discipline, focus, accountability. And Tyler, lounging on the couch like a king. She's been pulling this stuff since middle school, crying over tests, pretending to forget things. It's her move. I looked at them, the three people who were supposed to know me best, and realized they didn't know me at all. Still, the school pressed forward. Miss Reynolds scheduled a formal evaluation with the district psychologist, Dr. Liu, but to complete the process, they needed parental consent, and another meeting was called. This time, I knew better than to expect support. This time, I brought a secret weapon, a pocket recorder from the AV club. I tucked it into my hoodie and hit record as we walked into the conference room. The meeting started with pleasantries, then quickly turned tense. Dr. Liu gently explained that based on my classroom performance, testing behaviors and cognitive indicators, I showed signs of both auditory processing disorder and dyscalculia, meaning my brain struggled to interpret sounds correctly and had difficulty processing numbers. We believe Maya would benefit greatly from extended test time, note-taking assistance, and some modifications in math instruction, she said. My mom laughed. She just doesn't listen, she said. That's not a disorder. That's being a teenager. My dad shook his head. Back in my day, if you didn't understand something, you stayed up until you did. Kids these days just want excuses. Tyler added. Dr. Liu remained calm. With all due respect, this isn't an excuse. These are documented neurological differences. She's playing you, Mom said. She wants to coast. I've had Maya in class for months, Mr. Koenig interjected. I've seen her try harder than most kids. This isn't about effort. It's about how her brain processes information. Well, we live with her, Dad snapped. We know what this is. It's laziness. And the recorder caught every single word. That night, I sat in my room, listening to the audio, my breath shaky, my chest tight. I thought I'd cry, but I didn't. I just stared at the ceiling and let the numbness settle in. I emailed the recording to myself, and then I uploaded it. Private YouTube link, no name, no title, just listen. I sent it to Miss Reynolds, and to Mr. Koenig, and to my best friend, Nia, who ran the student-run account Liberty High Unfiltered. She posted the link without a caption. By the next morning, the hallway buzzed. By lunch, half the school had heard it. By the time the final bell rang, the link had been posted on Reddit, Twitter, and even made it to a popular education advocacy TikTok. Thousands of people were listening, really listening, to what it sounded like when a kid tried to ask for help, and their family told them to shut up. By dinner, my parents knew. I came home to my mom pacing the kitchen, and my dad waving a printed Reddit post in my face. Did you do this? He demanded. Did you record us? And post it? I stood my ground. I did. You humiliated this family, Mom seethed. Do you even realize the damage you've done? You mean the truth? I asked. The truth that you didn't want anyone to hear? Tyler threw his hands up. You just wanted sympathy. God, Maya, you're such a... No, I cut him off. I wanted someone to believe me, and they did. For the first time in my life, people were listening, and my family? They were finally the ones without a voice. The next morning, my face was on 3 group chats I wasn't even in. Someone had clipped my parents' voices from the recording, the parts where they dismissed me, mocked the diagnosis, and said I was just lazy, and paired them with a quote from Mr. Koenig. I've seen her try harder than most kids. This isn't about effort. It's about how her brain processes information, and that clip? It went viral. By third period, the video had 150,000 views. By lunch, it was over 500,000. Someone made a TikTok edit with dramatic music. Another added captions in bold white letters. Teachers started whispering in the halls. A few even nodded at me as I walked past. Like they knew. Like they understood. I'd lived my entire life as a shadow behind my family's perfect image. Now, they couldn't hide behind anything anymore. The school tried to stay neutral at first. The principal, Mr. Daly, called me into his office before last period. Maya, he said carefully, folding his hands on his desk. We need to talk about the video. I waited. You recorded a meeting without consent. That's a complicated issue. I raised an eyebrow. Is that why you called me in? To talk about legal gray areas? Or is it because it's embarrassing the school that my teachers tried to advocate for me while my own parents called me lazy? His face tightened. It's bringing attention to an important issue, he admitted. but you need to understand there are consequences. Like what? I asked calmly. For telling the truth? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back and said, "We're receiving media inquiry, news channels, blogs, parent groups. Some are asking to interview you." My heart jumped, but I stayed quiet. "I need to know what you want to do," he said. "I want to be tested," I said flatly. "I want the evaluation that meeting was supposed to be about, and I want the school to honor any accommodations I qualify for, just like you would for any other student." He nodded slowly. "I think we can do that." When I got home that night, it was like walking into a volcano right before it erupted. My mom was waiting at the kitchen table. Her phone was face down, but I could still see it vibrating. "You humiliated us," she said, barely louder than a whisper. "People I work with? Friends? My boss saw that clip. I didn't put your name on it. Don't play cute with me, Maya. Everyone knows it's a good," I thought. But I said nothing. My dad came in from the garage, wiping grease off his hands like he needed a reason to look mad. "Do you know what this has done to our reputation?" I laughed. "Your reputation? What about mine? You've been calling me lazy for 17 years, acting like I was a burden because my brain works differently. You betrayed this family," he growled. "You made us look like monsters." I stared at him. "I didn't make you do anything. You did that all by yourself." Tyler didn't say much that night. He didn't have to, but the next day he posted a vague tweet. "Crazy what people will do for clout. Some folks will throw their family under the bus for likes." He didn't tag me, but everyone knew, and the replies lit up like wildfire. "Is this about your sister? Because she's the one who was treated like dirt." "You mean the girl who tried to get help and got called lazy? That one?" Imagine being mad that your own words got posted. By the end of the day, Tyler deleted his Twitter. Meanwhile, Reynolds pulled me aside with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for what you went through, for the way they treated you. It's not your fault," I said. "You tried to help." "I've been in this job for 16 years, she whispered, "and I've never seen a student do what you did. I've never seen someone force people to listen." I didn't know what to say. She handed me a folder. "Here's the paperwork for the evaluation. Dr. Liu expedited it. She wanted you to know you've got allies in this building." The evaluation took place 2 days later. It wasn't scary, just exhausting. Tests for memory, processing, comprehension, reading aloud, solving problems under time limits, listening to words and repeating sequences. When it was over, I felt hollow, like something had been scraped out of me. Dr. Liu was gentle when she explained the results. "You have auditory processing disorder, just as we suspected. It affects how you interpret sounds, especially speech. It's not about hearing, it's about decoding. That's why you struggle with verbal instructions and lecture." I nodded, trying not to cry. "And the math issues? That's dyscalculia. It's a neurological condition that makes it harder to understand numbers and sequences. It has nothing to do with intelligence. Your IQ is actually very high." I blinked. "Really?" "Exceptionally high," she said, smiling. "You're not broken, Maya. You just process the world differently." I left her office feeling like I'd just been given a name for something that had haunted me my entire life, and that name was not lazy. 2 days later, the district approved accommodations. I'd get extended time on tests, written instructions instead of verbal, a calculator for math exams, access to a note-taking assistant. For the first time ever, I wasn't being asked to work harder to survive in a system that wasn't built for me. The system was finally adjusting to include me, and I had a copy of the official evaluation in writing, signed, sealed, certified. When I showed it to my mom, she just stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. "This says you're disabled." "No," I said quietly. "It says I'm different, and valid, and qualified for support." She didn't respond. My dad muttered something about soft generations. I walked away before I let myself scream, but the video kept climbing. By the end of the week, it hit 1-2 million views. News outlets picked it up. Bloggers wrote think pieces. Teachers across the country started sharing it in staff meetings. And my inbox? Full. People telling me their stories. People thanking me for putting a voice to what they'd gone through. Students, parents, teachers, therapists, even strangers. "I'm 35. And just got diagnosed after hearing your recording. Your courage gave me the strength to request testing for my daughter. Thank you." You're not just helping yourself. You're helping all of us." One message stopped me in my tracks. It was from Mr. Hastings, a retired special education teacher who now worked for a national nonprofit. He asked if I would be willing to speak publicly at a youth advocacy event in New York. He said I didn't have to answer right away, but I already knew what I would say. That night, at dinner, I spoke first. "I got invited to speak at an event," I said. Mom raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "About this," I said, gesturing toward my phone. "About the video. About what it's like growing up, not knowing your brain is different. About what happens when the people who are supposed to love you don't listen." Silence. Then Dad laughed, bitter. "So now you're a celebrity?" "No," I said. "I'm a kid you ignored." Tyler didn't come downstairs that night. I think he was embarrassed. Good. I don't know how this ends yet. I don't know if my family will ever change, or even try to understand, but I do know this. They built their entire image on pretending to be the perfect family. And I broke that illusion with a single audio file. Not out of revenge. Not even out of anger. But because sometimes the only way to be heard is to record what people say when they think no one's listening. I never thought I'd be asked to speak on a stage, let alone at a microphone, with cameras, and a room full of people looking at me like I had something important to say. But that's exactly what happened 1 month after I posted the recording. I was flown out to New York by a youth advocacy group called Think ADU, invited to speak at a panel called The Voices They Ignored. 3 weeks before the event, I was still just Maya Jennings, the girl who couldn't finish math homework without crying. Now, I was the girl from the recording, the one who finally made people listen. I didn't tell my family I was going, not because I was hiding it, but because they stopped asking me about anything after the video blew up. The only time they looked at me now was when I walked into a room, and even then it was the kind of glance you give a lit firework, pretty to some, dangerous to others. Tyler avoided me completely. My dad grunted when I said hi, and my mom, she pretended like nothing happened. That was almost worse. Packing for the trip felt weird, exciting, terrifying. Miss Reynolds helped me put together my speech. She even printed it out on cardstock and highlighted the lines where I could pause for effect. "You don't have to be perfect," she said. "You just have to be honest. That's what got you here." I smiled, even though I felt like I was going to throw up. When I got to the hotel in Manhattan, everything felt big and loud and full of color, like the entire world was awake and I was finally part of it. The event was held in a giant ballroom with white lights, navy blue curtains, and rows of folding chairs that filled up fast. There were reporters, teachers, parents, kids, advocates, people with signs that said "We see you" and "Neurodivergent nail broken." And then they called my name. "Please welcome Maya Jennings." I walked on stage. The mic was taller than me. My voice shook when I said hello. But I didn't let it stop me. "My name is Maya," I began, reading from the cardstock Ms. Reynolds helped me. And for most of my life I was told I was lazy, dramatic, and making excuses. I believed it, I admitted. Because when everyone around you says the same thing, it's hard to argue. I paused. But here's the truth. I wasn't lazy. I was struggling. And no one wanted to see it. Not my teachers, not my classmates, not even my family. I looked up, faces leaned forward. So one day, I recorded the people who wouldn't listen, and I posted it. I waited for the reaction. There it was. Gasps, nods, a few claps. Some called it betrayal, but to me, it was survival, because silence protects the wrong people. And I was done being quiet. By the time I finished, the room was standing. The applause was loud, too loud. I stepped back from the mic, blinking under the lights. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. Afterward, people lined up to talk to me. A teacher with tears in her eyes said, "I've taught for 22 years. Thank you for reminding us to check our bias." A boy about 12 said, "I have the same disorder. Can I show your video to my class?" A mom hugged me and whispered, I wish I'd had your strength when I was your age. I didn't have words, only tears. Good ones. I got back home on Sunday night. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No, how was your trip? No, we saw the speech. No, we're proud of you. Just Tyler playing video games behind his closed door. My dad in the garage pretending to fix something. And my mom on her phone scrolling. She didn't even look up when I came in. The next morning, everything exploded again. The New York Times ran an op-ed. A teen's secret recording exposes generational gaps in disability awareness. CNN posted a segment. The girl who made America listen. I was tagged on Instagram in over. A college reached out, asking if I'd consider applying with their new neurodiversity scholarship program. My email inbox looked like a press office. My phone buzzed nonstop, but inside my house, nothing. Silence. Until Tuesday night. That's when it happened. We were eating dinner, or trying to. The mood was stiff. Everyone chewing like they hated their food and each other. Then my mom set her fork down. You embarrassed us, she said, eyes on her plate. You've ruined our reputation. I froze. What reputation? You think this is brave? She said bitterly. It's not. It's a temper tantrum, a public meltdown. You humiliated your family for applause. Mom, I said carefully. I told the truth. No, she snapped. You told your version of the truth? My dad crossed his arms. You think going on TV makes you special? You're a kid. You'll grow up and realize how much damage you did. To who? I asked. To you? Or to the perfect image you tried to project? Tyler spoke for the first time in days. God, Maya, we've had to block comments. People are calling us monsters. Do you even care? I looked at all of them. No, I said. They froze. I don't care, I continued, voice steady. Not anymore, because I spent 17 years caring, and none of you did. You're twisting things, Mom hissed. I'm not, I said. The recording showed that. You said what you said. You meant it. You dismissed me. And now you're mad that other people see it too. I stood up. My chair scraped the floor. You wanted me to be quiet, to stay broken. I won't. And I walked upstairs without another word. That night, I got a message from Tyler. It wasn't long. Just, you seriously burned this whole family down. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. Because maybe something needed to burn before anything real could grow. That weekend, I got a knock on my bedroom door. It wasn't Mom or Dad. It was Grandma. She lived 2 towns over. I hadn't seen her since the video dropped. She stepped inside, holding a grocery bag. I brought soup, she said gently. You still like tomato, right? I nodded, surprised. She sat on the edge of my bed and opened the bag, setting down a thermos and a Tupperware of grilled cheese. You were brave, she said. I blinked. You saw it. I saw everything, she said. And I listened. Twice. She reached into her coat and pulled out a folded newspaper. My face was on the front. I clipped this, she said, voice trembling. Because I want you to know not everyone in this family thinks you're wrong. That's when I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears falling onto the soup lid. Thank you, I whispered. She squeezed my hand. Keep speaking, she said. Let them be uncomfortable. Growth always is. That was the night I knew. Even if my parents never apologized, even if Tyler never came around, even if I never heard the words I'm sorry I was wrong, I still won, because they couldn't silence me anymore. Not now. Not ever again. I wasn't invited to the family meeting. I just happened to overhear it. It was a Thursday night. I was upstairs working on an essay, one I actually felt confident about, now that I had the right accommodations, when I heard voices coming from the kitchen. Hushed, tense, too loud to be casual, too quiet to be a normal argument. I paused my music and crept down the stair. It was my mom, my dad, and Tyler, talking like they were trying to put out a fire that had already burned the house down. She's out of control, Mom said. We can't go anywhere without people staring. My boss asked if everything in the video was real. It was real, Dad grunted. That's the problem. Do you know how many people in my class are calling me out? Tyler added, voice sharp. I can't even walk across campus without someone whispering. Well, maybe now you know how she felt, I said loudly. Stepping into the room, 3 heads turned. My mom stiffened. We're having a private conversation. I crossed my arms. About me. My dad stood up, face flushed. You eavesdropping now? I live here, I said. It's hard not to overhear things when everyone's shouting about how much they hate being seen. My mom's mouth tightened. This isn't about being seen, it's about being dragged through the mud. You humiliated us. I took a breath. No, you humiliated yourselves. I just stopped hiding it. They stared at me, like they were finally seeing me as someone who wasn't going to sit down and be quiet anymore. Look, I said, trying to stay calm. I didn't post the recording to get back at you. I posted it because I needed people to believe me, because I've been gaslit my entire life. My mom scoffed. Don't throw therapy words at me. It's not a therapy word, I said, shaking my head. It's the word for what happens when someone tells you your reality is fake until you start to believe them. You're exaggerating, she snapped. Am I? I pulled out my phone. Because I've got the original recording right here. Wanna listen again? Silence. I didn't press play. I didn't have to. We all knew what was on it. What do you want from us? My dad finally asked. I met his eyes. Nothing. That's not fair, Tyler said. You go viral. You get invited to events. Colleges are calling you and we're just what? Supposed to sit back and take it. I shrugged. You took the spotlight my whole life. Maybe it's my turn. That's petty. No, I said. Petty would have been editing the recording, naming names, writing an essay about all the times you laughed while I cried over math homework. I didn't do that. I looked at each of them. My mother, who believed her job title made her smarter than everyone else. My father, who saw emotion as weakness. And Tyler, the golden boy who never had to ask twice for anyone to believe him. I just hit record, I said, and let you show the world exactly who you were. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Then Mom stood up. If you're going to keep playing victim, we're done here. I smiled. A small, sad one. I stopped being the victim when I stopped begging for your approval. I turned and walked upstairs, my heart pounding, not with fear, with relief. That weekend, Grandma came back. She brought cookies this time. And something else. A folded envelope with my name on it. I know you're still deciding about college, she said, patting my hand. But when you do, this is for your future. I opened the envelope. Inside was a check, $5,000. Grandma, don't argue, she said gently. You deserve someone in this family who invests in you. My throat closed. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, she said. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep being brave. Later that night, Tyler knocked on my bedroom door. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. He stepped in, awkward, hands in his pockets like he didn't know what to do with himself. Look, he said. I was a jerk. No argument here, I said. He sighed. I didn't get it. I still don't get all the neuro whatever stuff. But I saw the comments. I heard the stories. The ones from kids saying it helped them. He looked down. So, I guess I was wrong. That surprised me more than the check Grandma had given me. Thanks, I said. That means something. I mean, he said quickly. I'm still mad you blew up the whole family's life. I raised an eyebrow. But he added, maybe the family needed to be shaken up. He offered a fist bump. I returned it, cautiously. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. The next week, I was called into another meeting at school. Not about trouble, about opportunity. Ms. Reynolds and Dr. Liu sat across from me, beaming. You've been nominated for the statewide Student Advocacy Award, Ms. Reynolds said, handing me the letter. They want to honor you for raising awareness about learning disabilities, Dr. Liu added. You're the first student from our school ever nominated. I stared at the letter, at the gold seal, at my name. Not lazy, not dramatic, not making excuses. Maya Jennings. Advocate. On the walk home, I realized I was smiling. For the first time, not because I was trying to pretend everything was okay, but because something inside me finally was. I didn't need my family to believe me anymore. The world had. And I had believed myself. That was enough. The day the statewide Student Advocacy Award announced its finalists, my phone almost exploded. Text from Ms. Reynolds. Email from Dr. Liu. A voicemail from someone on the school board. And then the big one. A call from the local Channel 9 news team. They wanted to do a segment on me, my story, my fight to be heard, and how one quiet recording started a national conversation. I sat on the edge of my bed, the phone still pressed to my ear long after the call ended. A news segment. Me, the same girl who used to cry during math quiz, the same girl who used to fake stomach aches to avoid group projects because she couldn't follow instructions fast enough. The girl her parents said was just lazy. That girl was going to be on TV for something real. I told Grandma first. She squealed like I'd just won the lottery. "I'll record it," she said. "We'll make popcorn. You'll be amazing." I told Ms. Reynolds next, and she cried a little. But when I told my parents, nothing. No smile. No hug. Not even a congratulations, just silence. Followed by the clink of silverware, as my dad kept eating his dinner like I hadn't said anything at all. That night, I sat on the porch with my knees pulled to my chest, staring at the stars. Why did it still hurt? Why did their silence matter, when I had the support of so many others now? I had validation, recognition, proof, and still, I wanted someone in that house to say they were proud of me. But maybe that was the final lesson. You don't need applause from people who only ever heard you cry. The news crew came 2 days later. It was surreal. Lights, mics, a camera on my face. They filmed at school first. Me walking through the hallway, talking with Ms. Reynolds, even flipping through my math binder filled with color-coded tabs and sticky notes. Then they followed me home. Not inside, just to the front step. My dad saw them through the blinds and didn't come out. My mom left for an errand and didn't return until they were gone. I knew they were embarrassed, but I wasn't hiding anymore. So I stood in front of our peeling porch rail, lifted my chin, and answered the anchor's questions, like I'd been waiting my whole life to speak. "Why did you record the meeting?" she asked. "Because no one believed me," I said. "Not even the people who were supposed to." "What do you hope others take away from your story?" "That being different doesn't mean being broken," I said. "And that sometimes, the people who say they love you can be the ones hurting you most, without even realizing it." She nodded, clearly moved. The cameraman gave me a thumbs up. When they left, I sat on the steps for a long time, and for the first time, I didn't feel small sitting outside that house. I felt bigger than it. The night the segment aired, Grandma invited me over. She made lasagna, pulled out snacks, set up a little party in her living room like it was the Super Bowl. She even invited her neighbors. "Everyone's been following your story," she said. "They've got questions, but mostly, they just want to cheer you on." I sat between her and her neighbor Dottie, who kept handing me tissues. When the anchor said my name, Maya Jennings, 17, of Greenville High School, and the screen lit up with my face, I felt like my heart might burst. They played clips from my speech, a shot of me in class, and finally, the audio, just a few lines, enough to make a point, enough to remind the world how I'd been talked to, and how I fought back. The segment ended with a close-up of me smiling. A quiet, strong smile, and the anchor said, "Sometimes the most powerful voices come from the ones we tried hardest not to hear." The room exploded in applause. "You did it, honey," Grandma cried, squeezing my arm. "You were so composed," Dottie added, "and your voice so calm, like a lawyer." I laughed, wiping tears. For once the emotion wasn't about pain, it was about being seen, fully, proudly. Back at home though, nothing. No one said a word about it. My mom must have seen the news. It was everywhere. My dad definitely saw. Tyler? Probably too. But the silence in that house was deafening, heavier than ever. I wasn't just the embarrassment now. I was the threat to the lie they'd spent years protecting. 3 days later, the school principal called an assembly, mandatory, for every grade. Ms. Reynolds pulled me aside beforehand. "I promise it's not a surprise," she said with a wink. "But you'll want to sit near the front. I did. Right next to Nia, who squeezed my hand as soon as the projector turned on. Up on the screen flashed a giant photo of me, with the headline, Maya Jennings, named statewide advocacy finalist. The auditorium erupted in claps and cheers. Okay, quiet down, Principal Daly said at the mic, grinning. I know some of you already know Maya's story, but today we want to celebrate what she's accomplished. Not just for herself, but for all students. He paused. And Maya, on behalf of Greenville High, we'd like to present you with the school's first ever Student Voice Award. My breath caught. Everyone stood. Teachers, students. Even the janitor, Mr. Paul, who'd once helped me clean up my spilled lunch after a bad day freshman year. I walked to the stage like I was floating. When he handed me the plaque, I held it like it was a shield made just for me. Because in a way, it was. That night, Tyler knocked on my door again. He stood in the hallway, sheepish. Hey, he said, saw the school post about your award. I nodded. I also saw the news segment, the whole thing. I waited. You were good, he said. Like really good. I didn't know what to say. He scratched his neck, nervous. I guess I just never thought about it before. How different school is for someone like you, because no one ever asked, I said. He winced. Yeah, sorry I was such a jerk. I softened. It's not about being perfect, Tyler. It's about trying to understand. He nodded. Well, I'm trying. Later that night, I found a sticky note on my pillow. It was in my mom's handwriting. You always were a fighter. I didn't understand before. I'm trying to now. Mom. No. I'm sorry. No long explanation. But maybe that was a start. The next morning, I got another email. This one from a publishing company. They wanted to offer me a spot in a teen-authored anthology. Stories from the margin. Teen voices that changed the conversation. My story. In print. On shelves. For every kid who ever sat in a classroom and wondered if maybe they weren't broken, just misunderstood. And me, I wasn't just trying to survive anymore. I was learning how to thrive. When I first opened the email, I thought it was spam. We'd love to include your story in our upcoming anthology. Stories from the margin. Attached was a contract. Real. Professional. My name in the subject line. A short paragraph praising my courage and voice. And then, this sentence. We believe your voice can help shape a national conversation about learning disabilities and advocacy. I read it 5 times. Then I dropped my phone on my bed, covered my face and just breathed. This wasn't a tweet, or a TikTok, or a clip shared in a school group chat. This was a book. And I wasn't just in it. I was being asked to tell my story on my own terms. I called Ms. Reynolds right away. She answered on the second ring, like she'd been expecting it. Guessing you got the email, she said with a smile in her voice. I squeaked. What do I do? You read the contract, she said. Then you sign it. Then you write the story the way only you can. What if I mess it up? I asked. What if it's not good enough? She was quiet for a moment. Then, Maya, your story is already enough. Because it's real, and honest, and needed. You're not writing for applause anymore. You're writing for every kid who doesn't have the words yet. I signed the contract that night, sent it in, and for the first time ever, I wrote about what happened without censoring myself. I wrote about the way it felt to sit in silence while your brain worked twice as hard as everyone else's. I wrote about my mom calling it excuses, my dad calling it weakness, Tyler calling it attention-seeking. I wrote about trying to decode teachers' instructions while the rest of the class was already 3 steps ahead. I wrote about the first time I saw the test sheet go blank in my mind. Not from confusion, but from panic. And I wrote about the meeting, the recording, the viral moment. But most of all, I wrote about what came after, the voices that rose up in support. The strangers who said, me too. The way I learned that being dismissed by your family doesn't mean you don't deserve to be heard. Grandma was the first to read the rough draft. She cried halfway through, then hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. You wrote the truth, she said. That's the hardest kind of writing there is. She helped me mail it. I want to send it the old-fashioned way, she said, licking the envelope. So they know it came from someone who still believes in real letters. A week later, I got another email. The editors were blown away. They barely changed a word, and they wanted to feature my chapter first. The opening story of the whole anthology. Your words are what set the tone, the editor wrote. They're raw, honest, and revolutionary in the quietest way. I cried in the middle of my kitchen when I read. My mom walked in just as I was wiping my face with a paper towel. What now? She asked, her voice cautious. I'm going to be published, I said. My story's opening the book. She blinked. Something passed through her eyes, not pride. Something like hesitation, fear maybe, loss. Will we be in it? She asked slowly. You already are, I said. That night, she knocked on my door. She didn't come in, just stood there. I want to read it, she said. I didn't say anything. I know I don't deserve to ask, she added, but I think I should try to understand. I opened my laptop, pulled up the draft, printed it. Even though my ink cartridge was half dead and the edges came out fuzzy, I handed it to her wordlessly, and then I waited. She didn't say anything the next morning, or the one after that, but on the third night, she left a sticky note on my pillow. I didn't know how much I didn't see. I'm sorry, it wasn't everything. But it was something. 2 weeks later, the book cover was revealed online. It trended on Twitter for 8 hours straight. Stories from the margin. Maya Speaks, the publisher, sent me an advance copy in the mail. When I opened it, my fingers shook. There it was. My name in print? On the very first page. The local bookstore hosted a signing event. They made a whole display at the front of the shop. Meet our hometown author, Maya Jennings. I couldn't stop staring at it. Dozens of people showed up. Students, teachers, parents. Some strangers, some not. Ms. Reynolds hugged me tight. Mr. Koenig cried when I handed him a signed copy. I've never been so proud to be proven right, he said, laughing through tears. Even Tyler came. He stood near the back, quiet, eyes scanning the crowd like he couldn't believe this many people were here for me. And then I saw her. My mother. She stood at the very end of the line, holding the book like it might fall apart in her hands. When it was her turn, she didn't ask me to sign it. She just handed me a folded note and said, "Thank you for not leaving." Then she walked out. I opened the note later that night. You were always telling the truth. I just didn't want to hear it. I see you now. I didn't cry. Not this time. But I did tuck that note into the back of the book, between the final page and the back cover. Because maybe that's where it belonged. Not as the story's ending, but as a footnote to what came next. Because what came next wasn't silence anymore. It was letters, emails, book requests, speaking invites, mentorship panels. A middle school in Chicago started using my story in their disability awareness unit. A girl from Texas messaged me and said, "Because of you, I finally told my mom I need help." A teacher from Oregon emailed, "Your chapter changed the way I look at my students. You reminded me why I became a teacher in the first place." And a school counselor from New Jersey wrote, "We made your story required reading." And just like that, I became bigger than my family's denial. I became bigger than the kitchen table arguments, the eye rolls, the way they used to say she's just being dramatic. I became the girl who didn't just speak up. I became the girl they couldn't silence even when they tried. And I wasn't done yet, because the next step was college. And this time, I was applying as my whole self. I used to dread the word college. It hung over me like a cloud. Not because I didn't want to go, but because everyone assumed I could. My mom used to say things like, "Let's just focus on finishing high school first," whenever I brought it up. My dad once told me, "College is for people who can handle pressure." Tyler got 3 acceptance letters before Christmas his senior year. No one questioned whether he belonged there, but me? They made me feel like just applying would be an act of rebellion. So I never did. Until now. I sat at the kitchen table with a stack of brochures, a half-eaten protein bar, and my laptop opened to the Common App portal. I stared at the blinking cursor where the personal essay was supposed to go, and for once I knew exactly what to say. There are moments in life when staying quiet feels easier. For most of my life, I did just that. I was the kid who lost focus, the one who took longer on tests, the one who asked questions everyone else already knew the answers to. I was told I wasn't trying hard enough, that I needed to stop being dramatic, that I was just lazy. I believed them. Until I did. My name is Maya Jennings, and I have auditory processing disorder and dyscalculia. And the moment I stopped apologizing for how my brain works was the moment I started becoming who I'm meant to be. I wrote straight through, barely stopping for typos. When I read it back, I cried again. But this time, it was different. It was grief, yes, but also release. I was letting go of the shame they handed me when I was too young to know it wasn't mine. Ms. Reynolds reviewed my application and smiled so wide I thought her cheeks might split. "This," she said, tapping the screen, "is the kind of essay admissions counselors remember. This is you. Unfiltered." Dr. Liu offered to write one of my recommendation letters. Mr. Koenig wrote another, and my third. "Grandma, I don't know what to say," she protested. "Just say what you see in me." I said. She did, and it was beautiful. I applied to 4 schools, 2 in-state, 1 in New York, and a private university in Boston, with a program specifically for neurodivergent students. I didn't tell my parents the list. I didn't tell them when I submitted the applications, and when I got my first response, I didn't even tell them then, because the email came during dinner. I checked my phone, saw the subject line, "Congratulations," and quietly excused myself. I ran upstairs, shut the door and screamed into my pillow. I got in. The school was Brightwell University in Massachusetts. They offered a full tuition scholarship, not because of pity, not because of a handout, because of my advocacy, my voice, my essay. There it was, black and white. "We believe Maya Jennings embodies the spirit of resilience, leadership and transformation. We are proud to welcome her into our freshman class." I printed the letter and taped it to my bedroom door. No one in the house said a word about it. But the next morning, the letter was still there, untouched, and that was enough. A week later, I got another email from the editor of Stories from the Margin. The book had hit 2 on the nonfiction youth chart. They wanted me to do a book talk virtual, hosted by a National Parent-Teacher Alliance. "We'd love for you to speak about what schools and families can learn from your experience," the email said. It took me 3 days to say yes, not because I wasn't proud, but because the idea of sitting on a Zoom call and talking about the worst parts of my life to a group of adults, some of whom might be like my parents, that terrified me. But I did it. I sat in front of my laptop with my hair pinned back, and my voice steady, and told them, my learning disability wasn't the hardest part of school. My family's refusal to believe I had one. That was the hardest part. A woman from Arkansas messaged me afterward. "My son has dyscalculia. For years I thought he was just bad at math. Now I see him differently. Thank you for giving me that." I cried for a long time after that one, but not every message was kind. A few anonymous trolls found their way into my DMs. "She sold out her family for fame. She's just another Gen Z brat who wants a trophy for existing. Bet she made up the whole thing for attention." I read them, then deleted them, and then replied to one of them with just 5 words. I have the recording still. I never heard back. As the school year wound down, everything changed. My teachers gave me a standing ovation during my last week. The guidance department asked if they could keep my essay as a model for future students. The library put Stories from the Margin on the front table with a little sign, written by one of our own. Even the janitor, Mr. Paul, asked for a signed copy. But back home, still quiet, still cold, until the night of the awards banquet. I wasn't going to go. I didn't need more validation. I had enough. But Ms. Reynolds begged me. "It's tradition," she said, "and I think you're going to want to hear this." So I went. I wore a navy blue dress Grandma bought me on clearance. Simple but strong. When they called my name, recipient of the Resilience in Leadership Award, the whole auditorium clapped, and I walked across the stage like I'd been doing it my whole life. They handed me a check for $1,000 in scholarship funds. And then, a letter. from someone who wasn't there. It was from my dad. Maya, I didn't understand before. I thought I had to raise you the way I was raised. Tough. No room for excuses. But I was wrong. I'm proud of you. Even if I never said it before. Especially now. Dad, I sat in my seat and stared at it. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase anything. But it mattered. And maybe finally, they're starting to listen. That night I packed a box. My first official college box. Books, sweatshirt, notebooks, a printed copy of my essay, and the sticky note my mom wrote, folded carefully in the front pocket. Because as much as they failed me, this was still my story. And I wanted to carry all of it with me. The night before I left for college, the house was silent. No packed hallway, no group hug, no family dinner to send me off. Just me in my room, zipping up my suitcase, with Grandma's voice on speaker telling me to double-check my toothbrush and bring socks for cold lecture halls. You'll love Massachusetts, she said. It smells like books and possibility. I laughed, sitting on the edge of my bed. You always make it sound like a story. That's because you're living one, sweetheart. I walked through the house one last time after she hung up, not to say goodbye to the walls, but to the version of myself that used to live inside them, the version that flinched at the sound of her name, that lowered her voice to avoid being mocked, that kept her pain hidden under perfectly normal grades and forced smiles. She wasn't coming with me. The girl I was now, she walked taller, spoke loud, wrote things that made people stop and read again. My mom was in the living room, staring at the TV but not really watching it. She glanced up when I walked in, then stood. We both hesitated. Then, like it had taken everything in her, she stepped forward and held out a folded piece of paper. I didn't know what to say, she said, so I wrote it. I opened it slowly. The handwriting was hers, small, careful, like she'd rewritten every sentence. Dear Maya, I wish I had believed you from the start. I wish I had listened instead of defending my own pride. I wish I had seen your strength sooner. What you've done, what you're doing is bigger than anything I ever imagined. You were never broken. I was just blind. I'm sorry, and I'm proud of you. Love, Mom. I folded it back up with shaky hands. Thanks, I said softly. She nodded. I mean it. Then, like she didn't know what else to say, she asked, do you have enough socks? I smiled. Grandma already asked me that. Tyler helped load the car. He didn't say much, but at the last minute, he handed me something. A tiny flash drive on a key ring. What's this? He rubbed the back of his neck, awkward. I made you a playlist for the drive. Stuff I think you'll like. Thanks. He paused. And, I'm sorry too. For what? For everything. For laughing at you when you got extra time on tests. For calling you lazy. For not listening sooner. I blinked. He wasn't crying, but he wasn't hiding anymore either. We cool? He asked. I nodded. We're cool. My dad didn't say goodbye. He was at work when I left, but later I found an envelope tucked into my glove compartment. Inside was a note. You were always tougher than you looked. Don't let the world convince you otherwise, Dad. It wasn't everything, but it was enough for me to drive off with my eyes forward. The drive to Brightwell University was 6 hours. I played Tyler's playlist twice, listened to Grandma's voicemail 3 more times, and cried only once, during a song that reminded me of 7th grade, before everything got so complicated. When I pulled into the campus parking lot, it hit me all at once. Orientation week was a blur of maps, dorm tours, student IDs, and too many icebreakers. My roommate was kind. She read stories from the margin before realizing I was that Maya. You're the reason my parents finally stopped saying, just try harder, she said. You changed my whole house. I laughed. Thanks. Still working on mine. Classes started. I used my accommodations without apology. I emailed professors in advance. I asked for notes when I needed them. Used recording apps in lectures. And sat front and center every time. And not once did anyone roll their eyes. I wasn't special treatment anymore. I was just a student, like everyone else. And that was freedom. One night, 3 weeks into the semester, I got an email from a freshman back home. She wrote, I never thought someone like me could go to college until I read your story. I told my guidance counselor I wanted to be tested. I have the same disability. Thank you. I didn't know I was allowed to speak up. I stared at her words. Hand over my heart. I hit reply. You're not just allowed, you deserve to. That night, I finally opened the recording again. The original one. The school meeting. I hadn't listened to it since it went viral. I sat on my dorm bed, plugged in my headphones, and hit play. There they were. My mom, my dad, the counselor, all talking over me like I wasn't even in the room. She's just not applying herself. Every kid wants extra time. It's probably just hormones. I closed my eyes and listened to the girl I used to be. Scared, shaking, silent. And then I heard it again. That one soft line I said, that no one acknowledged at the time. I know something's wrong. I just don't know how to prove it. And now I didn't have to prove it. The proof was in the book, the scholarship, the school, the voices rising up behind me. They used to call me dramatic. Now they called me published. They used to roll their eyes. Now they used my words to teach. They used to talk over me. Now they listened. I hit stop on the recording, closed the file, moved it to a folder labeled archive, because I didn't need to play it anymore. The world already had. And I was too busy writing the next chapter.